In an era of crumbling empires and rising tides of nationalism, one man stood as the last great sentinel of a 600-year-old dynasty. He was known as the Red Sultan by his enemies, but to millions of his subjects, he was the Caliph, the shadow of God on earth. This is the story of Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the 34th ruler of the Ottoman Empire. Born in 1842, Abdul Hamid ascended to a throne teetering on the brink of collapse. The empire was dubbed the sick man of Europe, burdened by debt and internal strife. From the moment he took power in 1876, his reign was a maelstrom of challenges. He inherited a war with Russia, which ended in a devastating defeat and significant territorial losses at the Congress of Berlin. Yet it was in this crucible of crisis that Abdul Hamid's true character was forged. He was a master of diplomacy, a complex game he played on the world stage. He skillfully pitted the great powers of Britain, France, Germany, and Russia against each other, buying precious time for his empire. He knew that a direct confrontation would be disastrous, so he navigated the treacherous waters of international politics with cunning and foresight, always seeking to protect the integrity of his domain. Internally, Abdul Hamid was a relentless modernizer. He believed the empire's survival depended on catching up with the West, but on its own terms. He oversaw a massive expansion of education, opening thousands of schools, including military academies, civil service colleges, and institutions for law and medicine. He understood that knowledge was power, and he sought to create a new generation of loyal, educated Ottomans to run the state. His most ambitious project was the Hijaz Railway. More than just a feat of engineering, it was a powerful symbol of Islamic unity. Stretching from Damascus to Medina, it was funded entirely by donations from Muslims across the globe. The railway was designed to ease the journey for pilgrims to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, reinforcing the Sultan's role as the Caliph and protector of the faithful. It was a tangible link that bound the heart of the empire to its Arabian provinces, a testament to his vision of a modern yet deeply Islamic state. Beyond infrastructure, Abdul Hamid was deeply pious. He saw himself as the leader of the entire Muslim world, the Ummah. He used his title as Caliph not just as a formality, but as a potent political tool. He promoted a policy of pan-Islamism, sending emissaries to Muslim communities from Africa to China, fostering a sense of shared identity and loyalty to the Caliphate in Istanbul. He aimed to create a spiritual and political bloc that could resist the encroachment of European colonial powers. He commissioned the printing and distribution of the Quran and other Islamic texts on an unprecedented scale, spreading religious knowledge far and wide. But his reign was not without its shadows. Faced with constant threats of secessionist movements and assassination plots, Abdul Hamid grew increasingly authoritarian. He suspended the Ottoman constitution he had initially proclaimed, dissolved the parliament, and established a vast network of spies and informants to silence dissent. This earned him the infamous title of the Red Sultan in the Western press, which accused him of tyranny and oppression, particularly in relation to Armenian nationalist movements. It was a difficult, complex time, where the Sultan saw these harsh measures as necessary evils to hold the fracturing empire together against overwhelming odds. However, the forces of change could not be held back forever. A new generation of Western-educated military officers and intellectuals, known as the Young Turks, grew resentful of his absolute rule. They had been educated in the very schools he had built, but they now used their knowledge to demand a return to constitutional government. In 1908, the Young Turk Revolution erupted, forcing Abdul Hamid to restore the constitution and recall parliament. His power was now nominal. A year later, in 1909, a counter-coup aimed at restoring the Sultan's authority failed. The Young Turks seized this opportunity to depose him for good. Accused of instigating the rebellion, Sultan Abdul Hamid II was exiled from the capital he had fought so hard to protect. He was sent to Thessaloniki, a city that would soon be lost by the empire. He spent his final years under house arrest, watching from a distance as the new government made a series of catastrophic decisions. They plunged the empire into the Balkan Wars and then disastrously into World War I on the side of the Central Powers. It was the final nail in the coffin. The empire was dismantled by the victorious allies, its territories carved up, and in 1922, the Sultanate itself was abolished. Sultan Abdul Hamid died in 1918, just before the empire's final collapse. He passed away in Beylerbey Palace in Istanbul, a prisoner in his own city. He lived to see his worst fears realized, the disintegration of the state he had dedicated his life to preserving. Today, Sultan Abdul Hamid II remains one of history's most debated figures. Was he a paranoid tyrant who resisted progress, or a visionary leader who delayed the inevitable collapse of his empire for over 3 decades through sheer political genius and will? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. He was a man of his time, a transitional figure caught between a glorious past and an uncertain future. The last great sultan who truly ruled the vast Ottoman Empire. His story is a powerful lesson in leadership, faith, and the relentless march of history. It reminds us that even the most powerful empires can fall, and that the legacy of a ruler is often far more complex than the simple labels assigned by their friends or foes. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most fascinating characters. Let us know in the comments what you think about Sultan Abdul Hamid's legacy. Until next time, stay curious.